Welcome back, Blacksnakes, to another 122nd podcast. Your host today, Senior Master Sergeant Leslie Kaiser, and on air with us today is one of those teams you always want, but you hope you never have to use them. And we're talking with the Crash, Damage, Disabled Aircraft Recovery Team. And this team is no small feat. Anywhere from 22 to 25 people making sure that our aircraft are good and our pilots are safe. So without further ado, Master Sergeant Matt Osterholt and Master Sergeant Joel Smith, thank you for your time today and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we just kick this off with a little bit of you guys telling us a little bit about yourself, Sergeant Osterholt?
Yeah, so I've been in actually February 1st. I just hit my 18-year mark.
Congrats.
Thank you. So I've been out here full-time 15 years. Been on the CDDAR team the whole time, and then I've been CDDAR team chief, which we can get into later, for the past 8 years.
And you, Sergeant Smith?
I've been out here since 2002. I enlisted. I went down to Georgia for a couple years, but I've been back since 2014, and that's when I joined the CDDAR team. With that, I've gained a lot of experience, and I became a team chief 5 years ago, so 2 out of the 3 team chiefs are sitting here today.
That's awesome. Thank you both for your time today, your willingness to participate or let me guilt you into it. I appreciate both. So initially I heard about this team from Major Pence, which is our commander. And with everything, we talk in code or acronym. So CDDAR, again, stands for the Crash, Damage, Disabled Aircraft Recovery Team. What a mouthful. I'm glad we shortened that into a CDDAR team. So tell us a little bit, other than what the name actually stands for, a little bit more about that CDDAR team.
Our job is in the event of an aircraft mishap, whether that's the aircraft runs off of the end of the runway or goes off a taxiway and gets stuck in the mud, be to recover that back onto the runway or taxiway so we could hopefully just tow it back. So that would be, I guess, more of a minor event that we would do, all the way to an actual crash where we would go in with heavy equipment and remove the aircraft that way.
No pressure, guys. So when you were talking about that, the equipment, what equipment do we have on base to support this specific team? You're talking about heavy equipment, moving an aircraft. At this point, is the pilot safe? Can you go into that a little bit more?
So we're not really first responders as far as is the pilot safe? Our job would be more to come in after the pilot is safe. The first responders came, the Air Force would come in and do a investigation, and then they would call us in to remove the aircraft. And our goal with removing the aircraft is to prevent as little or no damage to the aircraft when we're trying to get it out.
Who in the Air Force does the investigation? Is that an outside entity?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's a crash or something like that, they're going to have a team coming in. It's not going to be our people investigating. They're going to, lock down the forms, lock down people that's worked on that aircraft so they can make sure that those people are interviewed. They can inspect what's been previously done with maintenance-wise to see what could have been the cause of that aircraft, but that typically will not be our people to do that.
Okay. So do you guys work hand in hand with first responders? They are protecting the people and maybe the scene, and then you guys kind of look after the aircraft?
We would if there was still personnel on board. Say it was a heavy and there was personnel on board and they needed our equipment to, maybe remove part of the airplane or lift something.
To help evacuate personnel. Okay.
So, yes, we would, but that's not generally our task.
You guys are so chill when you're telling me about all this stuff, and all I think of is chaos. How do you organize that chaos when a mishap has happened?
Training. I mean, honestly, we train every single year on stuff like this. We train from anything from a full-on crash with dealing with debris fields with bloodborne pathogens or things like that, or just composite materials that could, poke you, injure you, make you bleed, cut you, things like that. So every single year we do the same training, and that's just to essentially just make it so that it's like clockwork for us. So when we get into a high-stress situation, that it's something that, we've done this, we practice for it, that we know what we're doing, that we can stay calm, in the middle of a storm.
Yeah. Just muscle memory, just creating
Correct.
Those habits. What type of personnel are on this team? Are different shops on this team? Anywhere from 22 to 25 people support?
Our goal is to have at least 2 people from each shop. So right now with conversion, people moving shops, we're currently not where we want to be, but we're getting there. We're getting back in. But yeah, like I said, 2 people from each shop is our goal. So we have 2 from avionics, 2 from hydro, 2 from age, 2 from engine shop, and the list goes on through all maintenance. And it's good to have all those different mindsets when you go out to work on something.
You guys can almost like tackle your specific piece.
Right. If there's a environmental thing with a LOX bottle, we can, hey, E&E guy, go take care of that. And they already know, they don't need any additional training. They're already trained on how to do that.
Yeah. How does this team get selected?
I mean, honestly, it's working with the supervision, working with commanders, and talking to people like who would be a good fit. You got to really think about who's on other teams too, because we're standing up ace teams and things like that. And there's a lot of people that are double and triple tapped on things. So you're looking at expertise, and you're looking at people that, I mean, really one big thing for me is I'm looking at somebody that wants to be there. Because if you want to be there, you want to be on the team, then you're going to be engaged. And that's someone that I can count on. So even if you're not doing a specific job, like say you have a fuel leak and you have a fuel member, that's their specific job. Well, we don't have a fuel leak. Well, I need you to go get stuff out of the ISU. Essentially you're going to be a runner. Well, if you don't want to be on the team, you're going to be disgruntled or not even wanting to be there. That's somebody that I don't want to be there. So I want someone that wants to be on the team, not only for their expertise and their knowledge, but also their willingness to sit there and help the team in general.
Yeah.
So,
and looking for those experts in their career field, is that something someone can volunteer for, or a supervisor puts them in for it? If you're looking for maybe a go-getter, A1C, just coming in fresh out of tech school, and they're like, give it all to me.
Both volunteers, supervision. I think we've probably had our best luck with just working with people. We're out working on the jet and working with, engine shop or whoever. And it's like, okay, I like this guy. Like,
yeah.
And then we'll go talk to the supervisor, talk to the commander, and say, hey, I think we want him or her. What do you think? And
yeah.
And then broach the subject with that person and say like, hey, this is kind of what we do. This is a team.
We've also had people contact us and be like, hey, that sounds really interesting. I've heard a lot of cool stuff, like cool training that you guys get to go do, stuff like that. Like, I'd be interested in it, because some people just look at it and go, like,
it's another additional duty.
It sounds awesome. It sounds cool to do. Like, you guys go TDY to do things. You got it. Like, cool. I want to get out of Indiana. Like, so we've definitely been approached on things like that as well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the members turned out to where, they were good mechanics too, which is twofold. You want to be there. You're a good mechanic. You're fun to hang out with. Like, it makes for a good time.
Well, sign me up to be a runner. I'm not a good mechanic. So you said something that I really wanted to get to. What is the coolest training that you guys have gotten to go do?
Like training or just coolest experience with CDDAR?
Both.
You probably ask anybody on the team. I think our most fun training that we've ever had is up at Volk Field in Wisconsin. So they have
lots of breweries, I hear.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, we may or may not have found a few.
Just making sure the scene's safe, right?
Yeah,
okay.
You
gotta check out the local community.
You want to make sure
community involvement. I like it.
Safe, but they have basically a CDDAR playground up there. They got all sorts of old aircraft. They don't really mind if you. Obviously, they don't want their stuff broken, but you're allowed to play with it. Whereas our airplanes, we're not allowed to touch our airplanes before training. So we go up there, we use our airbags to lift them. We used a crane. We picked up an A6, which was a naval, kind of like about the size of a fighter, but picked it up with 2 cranes and flipped it over, rolled a C-130 over on its side.
We airbagged and turfed a helicopter.
Yep.
I got it, 2 foot off the ground just to see if we could.
They just give you permission to play with the tools that you have in case of real world happens.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where we get to basically practice to see if we can do it without providing secondary damage.
Huh. Have you guys had to use these skills before?
Probably the coolest wasn't necessarily a CDDAR did it, but the A-10 that's out in front of the base here. We were having a meeting when the A-10s first got here. That airplane came in, and it was a GITA, ground instructional training aircraft, that we used for maintenance when it first got here. Well, when we were done using it for maintenance, they wanted to put it out front. Well, it was too big to tow down the road. So we were deciding what we were going to do, and we talked about taking the wings off and doing it that way, but that was going to be a lot of work. So we kind of came up with the idea of like, well, maybe we could get a Chinook helicopter to come and fly it for us.
You just started arranging all that?
So yeah, so we made phone calls. I remember
Just phone a friend.
So somebody came like, Matt, figure out where the closest Chinook unit is. I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't know Army stuff. Okay.
Google.
Yeah. So yep, that's what I did. Googled, and we called, and we had a unit from Kentucky come up, and they thought it was awesome too. So we ended up stripping that aircraft all the way down to get it as light as possible because their lifting capacity was like right at our minimum capacity. It was interesting at first. I remember we tried to lift it a few times, and I'm sure there's some video footage of it out there somewhere, but our sling wasn't set up quite right. So we had to set it back down, and then they had to refuel at one point. Well, when they refueled, then they were too heavy. So I remember after we got him hooked up and he took off, and the A-10's hovering about, 10 feet off the ground, but he's not moving, and we're not in contact with the pilot. We don't really know what's going on.
Right.
Come to find out, he was too heavy, and he couldn't get it any higher to get over the fences. So he was just burning fuel for like an hour, hovering there burning fuel before they finally got it moved. So that was probably the coolest CDAR, not CDAR. Thing.
We like CDAR, not CDAR.
Yeah,
I don't know that I want to utilize this team, but you need this team.
Right.
It's almost like emergency rooms, right?
Right.
You don't want to utilize them, but you need them.
Right.
Well, for me, so I actually do have some real world experience for CDAR. So when we went to Kandahar in 2018, unfortunately for us, it wasn't our unit, but there were some events that we had. So we dealt with 4 different CDAR events while we were there. First one was a Afghani-owned Russian helicopter. So there was a mix-up between transferring controls from one pilot to the co-pilot, and essentially they crashed it on landing, and it flipped on its side, and like no one was killed. There was people hurt. That was one of those things where when it crashed, it landed on a wall, which it was still on base, but it was technically on the Afghanistan side of the base. So there was this whole back and forth between the U.S. and Afghanistan of who's going to deal with it. Hey, they didn't have the ability to deal with it, so we actually got to go and help roll that over and help go through it and pick it up and tow it into their boneyard while dealing with, Afghani officers and stuff. I mean, they were super cool about it, very thankful for it, but it was definitely like the first experience 2 weeks into Afghanistan. It was kind of like, okay, training kicks in, here we go. There was only about 7 or 8 of us that got to go over there and deal with that. Then the other one...
It's probably interesting just being around Russian. We don't get to see Russian
it was
very often, so that's kind of
way different. Like, I don't know if we're asking, like, we're trying not to hurt it. They're like, oh, it's scrapped. Like, just basically move it. So, we grabbed an AT forklift and, like, lifted the whole tail section that was broke off and just chained it up and took it over to their boneyard area. The other ones were all unmanned Reapers, so you didn't have pilots on board, which is, grateful that there was no injuries. There's never been a Reaper that's ever been craned. Well, it snapped a landing gear rolling out on taxi, so it's just laying on its left wing, dealing with the civilians, because they were mostly civilians that were in Afghanistan dealing with them. And like the most knowledgeable civilian guy, he's like, I've never used this attachment to lift it. We're like, there's no way that attachment's gonna work. So learning how to defuel it, airbag it, so then they could crane it into their hangar to work on. It was that one. Then they had another one, snap a right landing gear, kind of the same thing, fuel all over the runway. But the last one actually was low on fuel, and it didn't make it to the runway, and it crashed and it blew up. It was a giant fireball. But it's 95% composite material. So composites are really bad to breathe in, like cancerous. Not like I said, your training kicks in. I hoped I would never have to ever get in a Tyvek suit.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're in the middle of Afghanistan. It's July. It's hot, and you're taped up head to toe. None of your skin's allowed to be able to be exposed. So we have lieutenant colonels and majors taping us all up. We have 3 guys in backpack sprayers spraying a combination of floor wax and water to keep the vapors down, or the small little materials down, so the
dust particles from the
you can't
composites.
Right, so you can't breathe it in. So you have to go find every little piece and spray it down before it can be touched, collected, and wrapped in plastic. That was like a 10-hour ordeal just to get it contained, type of deal. Like, you had to account for all the munitions that came on it because it was loaded with Hellfires and all sorts of stuff. So like EOD was there. So before, like Matt said, when we first got there, the first responders had been there. EOD was there, BEE, bioenvironmental, to make sure that we were cleared, safe to go in there. So when the wind direction changed, everybody had to move because now you're downwind. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it before we ever get to touch the airplane to make sure that we're safe as personnel.
Maybe I don't want to be a runner. I was just kidding.
So there's definitely some different experiences, and I would say it was definitely cool to have those experiences. Like standing on a runway watching another Reaper land over your head is kind of cool because they weren't allowed to divert. But
it's one of those things fun to talk about now, but at the time,
you're
like
miserable.
Like basic training. Like, it sucks while you're there, but it's kind of fun.
It's great. It's great to have the experience.
Good to do once.
And the past, memories and things where you look back and go, man, it's kind of cool to be on a team of 6 people that's never done it. And like, I can say that I was one, right? So
yeah, that is really cool.
Just having that's kind of fun to do.
I don't know if I have anything after that, guys. Gosh, Joel. If someone wants to join the team, how do they reach out to you?
Just come find us.
Email,
come
phone.
find, email, calls.
Get in touch with your supervisor.
Yeah, supervisor.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that would probably be kind of step one if you wanted to like make it known that you want to be that you would like to join or have interest in the team. Talk to your supervisor about it because they know us. We've been in contact with all the shop chiefs, all the shop supervisors, so they know who we are. Tell you to come talk to. I would say that'd probably be step one. If not, you can just find me on Global, Joel Smith. There's only like 2 of
27.
me. There might have 42.
Yeah, I forget what number you are in your email.
I think I'm the only Osterholz, so
yeah, you are.
Should be pretty easy to find.
Or reach out. I work in Phase Doc now, so you can call Phase, talk to me, or
call me over in the tire shop.
So if someone was looking to join the 122nd because they got to hear about your experience, where you guys went, what team you're a part of, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them absolutely to do it. Honestly, it's probably been the best experience of my life. I joined when I was 17, so I've been in longer than I've been out, type of deal. So, but honestly, it's gave me experiences I never would ever have any other time. I wanted to do 6 years, get my school paid for, and get out. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a cop. I don't know why, but I want to be a cop, do 6 years, have my school paid for, and leave. See you later. Never see you again. Well, then I got my full-time job a month before my 6-year enlistment was up. So here we are 21 years later. And honestly, it's stressful. There's things, it's hard, especially once you get a family and things, but it's honestly the most rewarding thing that I've ever been a part of. So I would absolutely tell people that you should join, especially if you have the heart for it and you want to do it and you have that passion for it.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was planning on doing my 6 years, get my school paid for, and then get out. So I was going to school and finished up, got my A&P license to work on civilian airplanes and aircraft, and I was doing that for a while, and a job opened up here full time. I knew I was living down in Indianapolis at the time. I knew I wanted to be back in Fort Wayne. So like Joel said, the experiences that I've had, the places I've been able to go, and the fun stuff that I've been able to have a part of, you just can't really beat it, and you get paid to do it the whole time. So
yeah, I get paid to have fun.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
And the relationships. I don't even know why I didn't touch on relationships.
Yeah.
I'm such a relational person. I moved to Georgia for 2 years, and I worked with active duty, and just still having relationships with people that I haven't seen in 8 years, and then coming back here and being like, man, like I miss this is home to me, right? So when I left, I was sad, but then coming back and creating those stronger relationships with people that we work with, like I knew Matt, but I'd never worked with Matt, and now, like I could call Matt when I'm, if I move, like, hey, can you help me move this week? And he'd be like, yeah, I'm there. Or he'll be like, hey, how's your family? And I can ask him, hey, how's your family? And it's more than just work. So you create those bonds with people that last a lifetime.
Because you guys are both team chiefs too, right?
Correct.
Okay, so over an element within this team. How does that work?
So we run the whole team together, and we actually had one of our team chiefs just retired, and then another one, he just became an officer. Lost 2 team chiefs in the last year and a half or so, and so we're actually looking through our current members to promote 1 or 2 to team chief. And really the team chief's job is just to manage the scene. When we're out on whether it's training or real life, it's democracy, like, hey, let's put our heads together and think of what's the best way to do this, because there's no one way. Like, we have a book that gives us ideas, but it even says right in the book, like, this is not the only way to do it.
These are not step-by-step instructions.
Right, because everything's going to be different.
Yeah, it's not an instruction manual. It's a guide.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and every incident is different.
Absolutely.
No aircraft is going to have a mishap the same way each time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, on scene, we organize the chaos. But then, there's a lot of, just like any program, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of training and stuff like that we'd work
But
together.
you guys have to do that, not the team members, right?
Not the
Okay.
team member.
Correct. So so everybody has to be respirator trained. Well, we got to keep copies of everybody's respirator fit tests and binders. We have AFIs that we got to review. We have to meet with commanders just to go over the program, because really, ultimately, the CDAR team is managed by the maintenance group commander. So it'd be Colonel Westby's program. Mm-hmm. So essentially, she entrusts her program to us. So we answer to Colonel Westby. So that's the thing. Like, we better
no
have
pressure.
Right. So there's no go between. Like, we answer to her, and if we don't do our job right,
you're answering to her.
Right.
Good luck. So with that, thank you both for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you today for giving us a snapshot of what additional duties within your career fields you can be a part of. Sometimes it might seem like all we do is additional duties, but I can't lie, this one's really cool, and it works in tangent with several career fields. So Blacksnakes, please share the show. We want this to be the fastest growing military podcast out there, and it's because of people like you. So until next time, storm hell.
This is the official podcast of the 122nd Fighter Wing. Views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of the 122nd Fighter Wing, Air National Guard, or United States government. No endorsement of any person or business is ever intended.